Drat it, that boy promised me he'd paint the fence today. Yoo, Tom! Now where has that boy gone?
The folks who went before us blazed the trail through history. The heritage they left behind is part of you and me. All the dreams they still live on, and it makes me proud to be a living, breathing part of it all, the American legacy.
If you were a boy in the 1840s living along this great river, the chances are that you'd be found somewhere along its banks, floating a raft on it over to your favorite island hideaway, fishing in it, or even swimming in it. For the thousands of Tom Sawyers growing up in river towns like Hannibal, Missouri, the Mississippi River was the center of their life. It brought news from up north, cloth and candy from St. Louis, new families and their children from the east. And someday, when these young people grew up, they would make their living on the river. Oh, to be a steamboat pilot on the Mississippi. Mark Twain meant safe water for the steamboat. Sam Clemens, the boy from Hannibal, later used those words as a pen name when he wrote about his journeys on the great river.
You've got to know the shape of the river perfectly, Sam. It's all there is left to steer by on a very dark night. But mind you, it hasn't the same shape in the night that it has in the daytime.
Riverboat captains like Sam Clemens did know every bank and bend on the Mississippi for 1,000 miles, all the way down to New Orleans and back. Same holds true even today. The captain and crew of this historic steamboat know the river well. What about you? Well, if you're going traveling on the Mississippi with me, you ought to know some things about this river and its boats. The first is easy. Most of you already know that the Mississippi is the longest river in our country. But maybe you didn't know that it has some 250 branches, shaped like a tree. The biggest limbs, of course, are the Ohio and Missouri rivers. But notice how much of this great river system can be traveled by large ships or freighters on what we call the inland waterways. So much for your navigation training. Now for your engineer's license. This boat moves by steam power, transferred through this piston and gear to turn this huge paddle wheel, which of course makes the boat go. The first steamboat appeared on the Mississippi River in 1811. Man was now finally able to transport himself and his cargoes by mechanical means, upriver or downriver, with the wind or against it, without having to be pulled by people or by animals. These paddle wheelers, as they were called, were one of the main reasons behind the growth of river cities like St. Louis, Memphis, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. They could carry both freight and passengers from one part of the region to another. Today, only a few steamboats remain on the Mississippi, and almost all of these are for tourists, passengers that want to relive the early days of the steamboat. Replacing these beautiful old paddle wheelers is a new kind of boat, built not for passengers, but for freight. This huge rectangular-shaped vessel is a floating powerhouse. And even though it's called a towboat, it really doesn't tow anything. It pushes, moving slowly but surely those 56 barges, some filled with cargo, some without, up and down this great river. These huge pieces of steel are called knees. They act as pusher plates to shove this tremendous load up front through the water.
And these steel cables, well, they not only tie the boats securely to the barges, but each barge is securely tied to each other to form what is called the tow. The entire cargo then, lashed to the towboat, acts as one huge single ship, easily turned to the starboard side or to the port side to avoid the sandbars or shallow water or other tows and ships.
Inside, comfortable living quarters provide everything the 12-person crew needs in order to operate the tow 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even nighttime, a rainstorm, or a blanket of fog won't stop them. With radar and an electronic depth finder, the master pilot can actually see in the dark or in stormy weather, knowing exactly what's out front of the cargo and how deep the water is beneath the boat.
These tows are the workhorses of this country's inland waterways. They are one of the cheapest and most efficient methods ever designed to move large amounts of very heavy freight over long distances.
Up front is iron ore that came down the upper Mississippi River from Minnesota. Coal that was pushed down the Ohio River from Pennsylvania. Grain towed over from Kansas City. Limestone from the Tennessee Valley. All now joined together and on their way to New Orleans to be transferred to ocean-going freighters bound for South America and Europe. Located here at the mouth of the Mississippi, New Orleans has become the second busiest port in the United States. Only New York handles more cargo than this 300-year-old city. Every year, some 5,000 ships from more than 60 different countries tie up here along the miles of riverfront wharves, loading and unloading trade products of all kinds. Here also is where the thousands of tows coming downriver transfer their heavy cargoes to freighters, only to be turned around, reloaded with different products and materials, and sent back up the Mississippi to our inland cities.
The flags of France and Spain were once raised and lowered here in historic Jackson Square. This was before President Jefferson arranged to buy the Louisiana Territory in 1803. The architecture even reflects that early French and Spanish rule. Only a few steps away is the old French market, still in use today. Over in this direction is what was called the Cabildo, built by the Spanish in 1795.
It served as headquarters for their colonial government. Next door is the famous St. Louis Cathedral, which looks out upon the statue of Andrew Jackson, the American general who made history here in the War of 1812. At that time, the United States was again at war with England. General Jackson's task was to try and prevent the British from capturing this city.
Strangely enough, it was a well-known pirate of that day who played an important role in the Battle of New Orleans. His name, Jean Lafitte.
Lafitte lived at Barataria, south of New Orleans. The British knew that he and his band of outlaws controlled most of this swampy bayou country, which was one of the most direct and best approaches to attack the city. The question remained, would Lafitte help the British?
Welcome you to Barataria. It is not much I fear as far as comfort, but I can assure you that it is well protected.
Oh, yes, I'm sure it is. Matter of fact, some of your men gave us a bit of a start as we rounded the bay and came up the bayou, what?
Oh, I am so sorry, Capitan. After all, it is not often that we have the honor of entertaining a Capitan of the British Navy here in Louisiana.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Now, I'll come directly to the point, Lafitte. I've been instructed by my superior officers to discuss with you the possibility of enlisting your aid in our fight against these barbaric Americans, what?
Barbaric, Capitan? My, such a descriptive word. Your British officers have been heard to say such things concerning myself.
Oh, now, let us not quarrel, Lafitte.
I do not wish to quarrel, monsieur. It's only that I hear such words ringing in my ear. Jean Lafitte, why, that renegade, that barbarous pirate and his band of outlaws that sit in his den outside New Orleans and defies the world. Is that not so, monsieur?
Now, you can be of great help to us, Lafitte, and we're prepared to offer handsome rewards for such assistance. As you know, New Orleans is the key to this whole bloody war. New Orleans guards the mouth of the Mississippi, and whoever controls the Mississippi controls the whole vast region between the Alleghenies and the Rockies. What?
That is so correct, monsieur. And with New Orleans in the hands of the British, the United States could not expand westward. With such a trump card in your hand, the British might bid anything at the peace table and get it. Is that not correct, Captain?
Oh, yes, you have the point, essentially.
And you wish me and my comrades to join you, because the best way to get to New Orleans is through my pirateria.
Do not misunderstand me, Lafitte. We're prepared to make it well worth your risk. For entering into the service of Great Britain, you shall have the rank of captain. Upon our victory over the Americans, lands will be given to you and your men, as well as the freedom and access that you now enjoy to surrounding waters. In return, we would expect you and your men, as well as your ships, to be placed at our disposal, and we would want the best details of the routes up these bayous to attack General Jackson and his troops.
A very attractive offer, monsieur.
Ah, good. You will accept, eh?
Oh, I did not say that. Such an offer requires time to think over. I shall reply to your superiors by letter. Say within a fortnight.
Lafitte, I mean in a fortnight's time.
Monsieur, you forget. I must have time to put my affairs in order. And my men, well, they are scattered about the countryside at this moment for business purposes.
Very well. That's your decision. We'll be awaiting your reply.
And of course, I shall be anticipating becoming a captain.
Lafitte did not accept the British offer. He had far too many friends in Louisiana to turn against the land where he was born. In fact, by stalling the British for weeks into thinking he would help them, Lafitte gained General Jackson valuable time to set up his defense of New Orleans.
The major battle between the Americans and the British was fought here at what is Chalmette National Historical Park, 6 miles east of New Orleans. On January 8, 1815, some 5,400 of Britain's finest troops began marching across that field to attack the Americans, who were barricaded behind the Rodriguez Canal that flowed along here and this high mud rampart.
In less than 2 hours, it was over. The victory was Jackson's. Completely shattered, the British Army withdrew, having suffered over 2,000 casualties, including 3 generals. American casualties were less than 100.
The Battle of New Orleans was important in that it helped bring about a quick ending of the War of 1812. It also helped to unify many sections of this young nation.
Once and for all, the United States now firmly controlled the entire Mississippi River, gateway to the west and to the unsettled regions of the Louisiana Territory. With the coming of the steamboat, towns along the Mississippi River grew into large cities, bringing new products and new trade to the region. Slowly through the years, the river transformed New Orleans into the great trade center that it's become today. A city with a culture all its own. Even music it calls its own.